What up, guys? So recently I was watching a podcast with Demetrious Johnson, DJ Mighty Mouse, UFC champion, ONE FC champion, superb grappler, great world-class MMA fighter who, in my opinion, had some of the most fun grappling to watch in MMA. And he was on a podcast recently where he essentially said that Jiu-Jitsu is harder than MMA. I'll put the clip so you can listen to him say it in his own words.
When it comes to fighting, fighting is so much easier, than Jiu-Jitsu.
Fighting's easier than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Dude,
absolutely.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because it's like I have a buddy who's in law enforcement.
Well, sorry, do you mean gi or no gi? Or does it matter?
Gi is a lot harder.
Really?
Yes, no gi's fucking easy.
And so I think that's an interesting take because, you know, especially today with most people's perceptions, in the combat sports world, I mean, people poo-poo on jiu-jitsu all the time. And then in the jiu-jitsu world, people poo-poo on the gi all the time, right? There's so many people like, the gi's stupid, it's pointless, this is just, you know, whatever, insert whatever thing you want to say about it. And so him saying that it's harder, I thought was very interesting, right? And, you know, as someone who's done MMA, I fought for 6 years, and who's been grappling since 2000, right? Almost 24 years now, I agree with him, sort of, right? I think, and this might be like a semantics thing, but I think of MMA as harder, jiu-jitsu is more complex. You know, when you say hard versus complex, it's a little different. Like, for instance, there's a guy right now out there doing some road work, super hot outside, it's like 100 degrees. He's out there digging a ditch. That's hard work, right? Now, me, I run a business and I do this content with you guys and I have to manage employees. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts, very complex. But that's harder than what I do, right? It's hard because he's out there, I mean, he's literally having to break his body down. I do this in jiu-jitsu a little bit, but that's kind of fun. But most of my work revolves around very complex things, but it's all kind of here. I see it as more challenging and more complex, but not as hard physically. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. But with that, I think MMA is harder. I think jiu-jitsu is more complex. Now, why is that? You know, what's the big deal? And again, any of you guys watching this, you're welcome to chime in with your own thoughts, right? But in my bearded opinion, from training these two things, I can tell you that whenever I was getting ready for a fight, I always noticed that my game in all areas had to become far more simplistic. You know, with my jiu-jitsu game, a lot of things went out the window because now I'm getting punched in the face, elbowed, kneed, whatever, right? Even stuff that I did in boxing. In boxing, you know, again, there's a lot of different movements that I can't take to MMA as much, right? Like, I don't necessarily want to slip hardcore all the time as much as I would in boxing because now I'm getting kicked in the face, I'm getting kneed in the face, and so you're taking things off the table there. There's things from Muay Thai that I'm not going to take over at MMA. Everything sort of simplifies down because of all the different variables that are going on, and you're combining them together. Now, there's a complexity in that, but it's still a little bit more simplified, right? With jiu-jitsu, one of the big things is that we can play in the mid-range and there is no punches or strikes. So when I say mid-range, I mean basically about a bit arm's reach away. That's where we do most of our work initially in jiu-jitsu, right? We do a lot of tight stuff, passing and, you know, whatever else. But, you know, when we're locked up, we're all like right here. When we're playing different guard positions, we're playing in the mid-range. And all that stuff typically goes right out the window once we're in a fight situation because of the bad distance. When you're in a fight, you have to be much more careful as far as managing distance. You're either out or you're in. You're not playing from the mid-range very long. Whereas in, you know, a jiu-jitsu versus jiu-jitsu setting, you can sit there as long as you want to. And you'll find people when you're watching competitions where they're literally, you know, fighting grips and everything else, and they're sitting there, they get tangled up either in the gi or just with their limbs, and they're like sweating and wiping sweat off their brow, and you can see them actively thinking to try to solve the problem that they're facing. And so again, I think that ability to sit in the mid-range causes for or allows us to have a lot more creativity because we're not getting punched in the face, as simple as that. And so I think when I was listening to that podcast, I saw it as this: jiu-jitsu is more complex. And then again, that's no-gi jiu-jitsu. Then you add gi jiu-jitsu into the mix and you got lapels and everything else. And the complexity goes up even further because now you have even more variables. You have handles all over your body. You have this lapel that you can wrap around the person. You have collar grips. We've all been there, right? Again, if you go from pure no-gi jiu-jitsu and get over to the gi, it changes things a little bit. But I do think that MMA is harder, right? I think it takes a much more of a toll on your body than I say that from experience. But I'm curious to see what you guys think. Again, this was more of like an idea to chew on today from what I was watching. I thought it was an interesting take. Wanted to share it with you guys and see what you think. So put your comments down below. What do you think? Do you think that jiu-jitsu or MMA is harder? Which one do you think is more complex? If any of you guys have experience with the two, you've fought and you've done jiu-jitsu, throw your thoughts down below and I'll read them. And I'll talk to you guys next time.